You know, most of us grow up with this really simple idea. To be stable, you've got to be in control, right? Control over your thoughts, your emotions, your impulses. It just seems like the only way to keep everything from, well, from falling apart.
But what if that whole idea is completely backward? What if real stability doesn't come from tightening your grip, but actually from softening it? This question suggests that maybe, just maybe, our constant struggle for control is the very thing making us unstable. So let's dig into that.
So, we're going to start with this core instinct we all have, this feeling that we absolutely must manage our inner world. But what if this instinct is actually creating the very chaos it's trying so hard to prevent?
Think about this cycle. It happens so fast, it's almost automatic. It starts the second an inner state arises, a flash of fear or anger or that familiar voice of doubt. Our immediate reflex is to jump in and do something about it, to fix it, to push it down, to argue with it. We're constantly trying to correct ourselves. But all that activity, it isn't free. It comes with a cost. A constant, low-level tension humming away inside you.
This quote just nails the cost perfectly. Instead of just being present in your own life, you're constantly playing the role of its editor, always trying to cut out the parts you don't like. You're not really living, you're managing. And man, is that exhausting.
So this constant internal management, it builds into something even more costly. We all praise self-control, and for good reason. But there's a really fine line between healthy self-regulation and what ends up being a draining form of internal self-defense.
And here's the difference. Regulation is a conscious choice. It's you deciding, okay, I'm not going to eat that second piece of cake. It takes a specific, focused effort. Defense, though, that's different. It's driven by a subtle assumption that's always running. It's not a single action. It's a state of constant background monitoring. Like having a security camera on inside your own head. And that kind of vigilance just quietly drains your energy all day long.
And that entire defensive posture, it's all built on one single core belief that something inside of you simply cannot be trusted, that your anger, your fear, your impulses, they all need to be policed.
All right, so this brings us to the real turning point. If control isn't the answer, then what is? Well, it means we have to completely redefine what we even mean when we say stability.
And here it is. True stability isn't about being rigid or motionless. It's not about preventing feelings from ever showing up. It is simply the absence of resistance to whatever is already moving inside you.
So what does that actually feel like in practice? It feels like flow. When thoughts arise, you just let them move. When emotions appear, they pass on their own. When impulses surface, they're just seen. You just notice them. The truly revolutionary part is this. Nothing needs to be pushed away, and nothing needs to be fixed. The system, it turns out, stabilizes all by itself the moment we stop interfering.
So what actually happens when you adopt this looser grip? What does life look like without that constant inner correction going on? The result is pretty surprising.
I think this is the biggest fear, isn't it? That if we let go of control, we'll become chaotic and messy. But the exact opposite is true. When you stop fighting with yourself, your entire system actually becomes simpler.
And this newfound simplicity creates this amazing positive cascade effect. First, your responses to things become cleaner because they're not filtered through all that self-correction. Then, your decisions get faster because you're not stuck second-guessing everything. And finally, your recovery from setbacks becomes almost immediate because there's no internal resistance holding on to the disturbance.
This quote just sums up the whole shift in perspective, doesn't it? Stability isn't a rigid dam holding back the water. It's a strong riverbed that allows the water to flow without breaking its banks. The key is allowing that movement without panicking.
So let's distill all of this down to one final, powerful takeaway. What do you really discover when you finally stop fighting that constant battle against yourself?
And this is the great relief. The very thoughts, feelings, and impulses you spent so much energy defending against, you suddenly realize that most of them were never actually dangerous. They were just movement, just energy passing through.
Which leaves us with a final question to really think about. If stability doesn't come from control, then our whole understanding of trust has to change. It's no longer about being certain of the outcome. So what does this new kind of trust, a trust in the flow itself, what does that actually feel like?